One sunny morning, a postman arrived at our small fishing village carrying a letter. He stopped at my door and asked if I was Peter. When I nodded, he handed me an envelope. I could barely contain my excitement as I called out to my wife, Brenda. Our son Harry had sent us a letter from London, where he had been working for 3 years. Since neither Brenda nor I could read, we hurried to fetch the village school teacher. Soon, curious neighbors gathered around as the teacher opened the envelope. He read aloud that Harry was working hard in a factory, often through the night, but earning good money. Then came the surprising part. Harry had enclosed a money order worth £100. The teacher explained that I needed to take it to the post office in Springfield to exchange it for cash. Everyone congratulated me, calling me a rich man. That evening, I promised the villagers a celebration, and Brenda's eyes filled with tears of pride for our hard-working son. Early the next morning, before dawn broke, I dressed in my finest clothes and began the long journey to Springfield. After walking 10 miles to catch the bus, I traveled for 3 more hours until I reached the city. I went straight to the post office, but when my turn finally came, the official refused to help me. He demanded something called an identity card, which I had never heard of. No matter how much I protested that everyone in my village knew who I was, he wouldn't budge. Frustrated and confused, another person in line directed me to the Ministry of Interior. At the ministry, I waited in another endless queue, only to be told I needed to return the next day with photographs. Desperate to finish my business, I found a photographer who agreed to take my pictures. However, he charged me £3 and insisted I come back the following morning because photographs took 24 hours to develop. Exhausted and disappointed, I returned home empty-handed that evening. Brenda's face fell when she saw me without the money, but I promised to try again. 2 days later, I made the journey back to Springfield. When I knocked on the photographer's door, a woman answered and claimed to know nothing about my photographs. Eventually, the photographer himself appeared, smelling of wine and looking disheveled. He denied ever taking my pictures and demanded proof of payment. My anger boiled over, and I struck him with my walking stick. A crowd gathered, and soon a policeman arrived. At the station, the officer simply told me to leave Springfield and never cause trouble again. I walked back to the bus station, my heart heavy with failure. Back in the village, the school teacher offered one last hope. He gave me a letter of introduction to Mr. William, an important and wealthy man in Springfield who might be able to help. The following Sunday, I made the journey once more. Mr. William's house was grand, with fine carpets and elegant furniture. When I finally met him, he seemed kind and sympathetic. He examined my money order carefully, then delivered crushing news. The money order was worthless because it was improperly issued for our country, and it had also expired. I felt my world collapse. Mr. William must have seen the devastation in my eyes because he smiled gently and said he wanted to help anyway. As a rich man who enjoyed helping others, he would give me something for my trouble. He left the room and returned shortly, handing me an envelope through his assistant. Grateful but confused, I left his grand house and didn't open the envelope until I reached the bus station. My hands trembled as I counted the money inside. £10, only £10 from the 100 my son had worked so hard to send. I thought about Harry labouring through long nights in that foreign factory, sacrificing his comfort to help his aging parents. I imagined his joy as he carefully prepared that money order, never knowing it would bring us nothing but exhaustion and humiliation. Mr. William, in his fine clothes and beautiful house, had taken advantage of an old, illiterate fisherman who simply wanted to claim what his son had sent with love. As the bus carried me back toward my village, I stared out the window at the darkening sky. I was going home with only £10 and a heart full of bitter understanding. The world belonged to people like Mr. William, people who could read and write and understood complicated things like money orders and identity cards. People like me, honest and hard-working, but uneducated, would always be at their mercy. I thought of Brenda waiting at home, of the neighbours who had celebrated with us, of my son's sacrifice now reduced to almost nothing. In that moment, I understood that being poor wasn't just about having no money. It was about being powerless, invisible, and easy to cheat. I clutched the £10 tightly, knowing it represented not just lost money, but lost dignity, lost hope, and the painful price of ignorance in a world that showed no mercy to the weak.